So I would say, as women, we never arrive to where we get to alone.
This particular event came together because our president, Madeline Pumariega, was in conversation with the Consul General of Britain, and they were thinking, well, what could we do for the upcoming Women's History Month? And they thought that together they could have a real impact in terms of sharing information about women. And as you could see, we had many gather here today to hear what they had to say about women's empowerment.
You know, I think that people, when they see something, they believe it. So when we bring together a panel of amazing, powerful women like we did this morning with the General Counsel and the Commissioner, our students are watching, your daughter is watching, and they can see that they can believe that they also, too, can aspire to be a president or commissioner or general counsel. So I think anytime that women can elevate women, we really do bridge that gap.
The idea is women will look in the mirror, see themselves in a role that they might previously have not considered, and hopefully that gives them the confidence to go for that role.
I think that it is an exciting time. I think our daughters, I have a 2-year-old little girl, and thankfully we're living in a time where our young women have more examples of women in leadership than ever before, and that's truly inspiring.
The mission of Miami-Dade College is really to create pathways of success for our students and also for our leadership team and our employees. So I'm so proud to bring these kinds of programs together that let us connect with each other.
Good morning and welcome to International Women's History Month, Women Who Lead program. My name is Vivian Maria Lopez, and I'd like to welcome you as well to Miami-Dade College, Wolfson Campus. And now, of course, it is my pleasure to introduce the president of Miami-Dade College, Wolfson Campus, Dr. Beatriz González.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Vivian. I appreciate that. Good morning and welcome again to the Wolfson Campus of Miami-Dade College. It truly is a pleasure to host you here for this conversation with these three remarkable women. Today's conversation is in celebration of International Women's Month and also presented in partnership with our partners at the British Consulate General. So thank you. This event is part of an ongoing series of Women Who Lead, and that series was first inaugurated during President Pumariega's investiture. So we're happy to continue having these events to honor women and hear about their leadership. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump into our questions right now. And let's begin with our Consul General. So could you please tell us a little bit about what the UK has been doing to advance women in the UK and perhaps in the world?
Sure, thank you very much. We talk about being a force for good in the world. So it's all sorts of rights and human rights, whether that's gender discrimination, sexual orientation. We will not stand by when we see it happening. So this year we're launching a new strategy, and it talks about the 3 E's. And it's educating women and girls, empowering women and girls, and ending all sorts of violence. And that's any type of gender-based violence, but also violence in conflict. So I think that's particularly relevant right now. We're hosting this year a Safe to Be Me conference, which is aimed to be the world's largest conference on gender and particularly gender identity. So anything that we can be doing, whether that's in forums like the United Nations, then the UK government likes to think of ourselves as the forerunners on it, with the very close support of allies such as the US.
I'd like to ask the same question of Commissioner Cohen Higgins. What is the Commission doing, what's the county doing to help advance women?
Thank you so much for the question. I think the beginning of the response to this is going to look at our leadership, right? For the very first time in Miami-Dade County, we are blessed to have a wonderful Madam Mayor at the helm and in leadership, and we're very grateful for Mayor Cava and all that she does. At the Commission, it is International Women's Month, and we do a lot by way of celebrating women in kind of ceremonious ways. We have events throughout the month that is celebrating women. I personally, as one of the 4 female commissioners out of 13, make it a point through the entire month to highlight individual women that have made strides and accomplishments in our county and nationally, and bring light to the issues that are very real. Because I get the question rather directly, well, women are equal. Why do we need to have an International Women's Month? I mean, there are a lot of people who genuinely don't understand the cause. And so I always read up on stats. I tend to cite stats. to illuminate individuals that may not even be coming from a negative place with the question, but genuinely don't understand how deep the disparities really are. They say, well, we have a Madam Mayor, we have a Madam President. What's the issue? Women are equal. And so I'll recite stats to illuminate the fact that that's not, unfortunately, not yet true. So the Commission is very dedicated to uplifting and supporting women, and I'd like to think of myself as a leader in that effort, and it's certainly not limited to this month. Throughout the year, we're always doing a number of initiatives. So thank you. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you so much, and points to how important that E for education is in terms of never relenting on that, sharing what we know. A slightly different question for President Pumariega. So there's recent research that shows that companies led by women have had better retention throughout the pandemic. What do you think is behind that? What is it about women's ways of leading that might lead to an outcome like that?
It's a great question. Thank you for my friends for being here, our colleagues. And I will say, just following up on data, I get that question all the time. And then I'll tell people that 60% of students enrolled in colleges and universities are women, but only 29% of presidents leading colleges and universities are women. And then they look at me and they go, oh, so we have work to do, right? But representation matters, and you can't believe what you don't see, and I think that's why it's so important. But I will say, I think that during the pandemic, people ask me all the time, how does it feel to be a woman, the first woman president, or be a woman president? I'm like, I don't know, I've always been a woman. I'm not sure how I feel, right? And so I say, I think that a tool that leaders have are the questions that we ask. And I think the questions that we ask as women is through a lens of being a woman. And that doesn't mean that there's not enormously empathetic, insightful, and wise men asking wonderful questions because they've grown and they've learned and all of that. But I think naturally, for us as women, we ask those questions about, it's the question I get all of the time. And sometimes I say, why do you ask me that question? I never hear a man be asked, how are you balancing family and work? And they would probably say on the golf course. But, the reality is I think we do have that lens in which we look at our teams and bring the natural empathy and knowing that it's important for us, it's part of that nurturing element to bring people together, to have a culture of care, to not just think of the bottom line and the ROI, but the process in which we reach those goals is equally as important, that everyone feels that they have a part in it and that we see them. And that's true for us here at MDC, I think, is really creating that culture of care.
Thank you very much. So President Pumariega described women in general and perhaps why they may better retain employees and how they may lead. But I'd like to ask about your individual special sauces. So if you could describe in one word what your leadership style is like, what would be that word and why? How about if we begin with Commissioner Cohen Higgins?
Sure. I get the least amount of time to think about that. Please note we did not receive these questions in advance, right? So this is truly off the cuff. So one word I would have to say is, I would say precise. I'm very detailed in my leadership. I'm very detailed in my requests. And it can be somewhat challenging when you start working with me, to be honest, because I expect a detailed kind of response, right? So I don't operate in kind of obtuse shades of gray. I'm also a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 15 years. I own my own law firm. So I'd like to think I know a thing or two about leadership. And what I have found to be very effective is very clear, concise, and precise communications. It helps me, I think, communicate an idea clearly. And when I receive a response in a similar manner, then it tends to be effective and we are able to then get things done.
Thank you. Mean what you say what you mean, right? President Pumariega?
Oh, it's hard, one word. I would say strategic. Everyone laughs. I think strategic. And I think strategic, in other words, is being intentional. It's seeing around the corner and having that vision, and then it's being collaborative. I don't necessarily think you can be strategic and not be intentional, not have vision, and not build collaboration in the process.
Thank you.
I think I would say flexible. So that's right down to sort of allowing flexible working, allowing people to work when it best suits them and in a style that best suits them. It's various courses that I've done. There was one I can remember on leading with purpose, and it was just really recognising the different personality styles, the different ways of learning, different ways of working. And I think you need to be flexible to bring out the best in people.
Thank you. It's true. There's a lot written about how important autonomy is to workers, so the boss has to be flexible for that to occur. So thank you very much. So now I'd like to ask a question where you'll think back a little bit. And if you were to give advice to a younger version of yourself, what do you think you would say to maybe prevent some walls you crashed into or some events that didn't go the way you planned? What would you say to a younger version of you?
I'll start. I'd say that you're enough. I think that as women, we grow up trying to be pretty enough, smart enough, good enough, and we spend still in our older, wiser years still trying to look good, smile good. Is the smile good? Is this good? Is all these things? And I would just say that you're enough. And from there, from a place of enough, comes abundance. But if your mindset is that you're not enough, it's really hard to see the world around you as abundant and as a place where you can grow. So I would say to myself, you're enough.
Thank you. Have to begin from there.
I think it would be to try, and you're always going to have challenges in any form of life and work and personal life as well. It's to make sure that you've got strong allies and supporters around you. So those people that you can turn to and just kind of share your frustration or share what your challenge is, because guaranteed someone's probably already been through it. And when I say allies, I believe really strongly that, there's a lot of very good male allies that see women, they see us for who we are and look at kind of like opportunities to help raise us up. I couldn't have got through the last 3.5 years without my husband here. So, yeah, I think finding those supporters and those allies is really important.
Thank you. So you have the wherewithal, but everybody needs a crew. So gather your people.
I couldn't agree with what both of these amazing women said. And what I would advise my younger self is to trust the process, even when it's not perfect. I, at least the younger version of myself, was always very anxious about what I was going to do, what I thought I needed to do, and how I needed to do it, and what the process needed to look like in order for me to do whatever it was that I wanted to do. And as I got older, I realized that, so long as you're putting your best foot forward and recognizing that you are enough and doing the very best that you can, even if the road is bumpy and stumbly and imperfect, it is your story. That's actually what I think is our superpower as women. And the women that I've spoken to, especially in positions of leadership, have delayed an initiation because they fear that something that they did either wasn't good enough or would somehow hold them back. But when they shared that, whatever was holding them back, it allowed them to connect with other women, and it allowed them to feel even more empowered. So the younger version of myself, I would say, trust the process. Even when it is imperfect, it will end up being your superpower.
So now let's switch gears, but still reflecting a little bit, setbacks. When you have a setback, when you have a disappointment, how do you get back on the horse? What do you tell yourself? What are your strategies to overcome an obstacle or to overcome a setback?
If I think about challenges in my career, so I'm a career diplomat. It's 33 years this year that I've been with the Foreign Service in lots of different places. It wasn't actually too long ago, so it was around the time I was joining, that women had to resign on marriage because we didn't allow women to go overseas when they were married, which is just ridiculous when you think about it. We had different places in the world where women weren't sent to, and now we've completely changed that. And then I think I've also faced challenges in how people interpret you. Being the first female Consul General from the UK here, I know that was unusual. My predecessors were all men, but we would go to events and people would, and it was mostly men, I have to say, they'd meet my husband and I at a reception and they would start talking to him. And even just the other day we were at an event And this guide was just turning and talking directly to Carl. And even when I gave my business card, he took it and then looked back at Carl. And it's like, so I think it's like how to deal with that, not letting it affect you, and trying to, and still there's that kind of like the sexual innuendo that you still get, or the sort of the looking up and down. And it's how you deal with that now, deal with that in the mature way that you respond, and not getting really angry, which is challenging sometimes.
So you've noticed a difference in that in yourself over time?
Yes. I'd like to be able to say what I think sort of 5 minutes later. I need to be a little bit quicker and do it in the diplomatic way.
Of course.
But, yeah, I'll get there.
That's the only way for you.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so overcoming obstacles, I think the way that you address any obstacle in your life is going to be a matter of your perception and how you choose to process that obstacle. I am an eternal optimist. We all have had struggles in our life, and it's your choice on how you process those struggles and how you synthesize it. And I talk about taking those challenges, kind of like synthesis. Bring it in, kind of process it, and what are you going to do? How are you going to put it back out into the world? Mm-hmm. Being the eternal optimist, I take challenges and figure out what can come in light of it. What can be a positive outcome despite that challenge? What can I do? What can my role be to turn that negative literally into a positive? So, we've all faced challenges. I certainly have, but I am very intent on not allowing one or, many challenges to knock me down. I process it and figure out a way to, end up turning that into a positive situation. But that's very purposeful, and it takes work, because sometimes the challenges are so large that you feel like this one's going to knock me down. Like, this is going to be the one that kind of derails me. So depending on the difficulty of the challenge that you're faced with, that process can be a challenging one. Mm-hmm. But I do work very hard to process everything and try to find a positive out of it.
Yeah, that's very important, to reframe situations in a way that enable you to deal with them, to identify what's there and use your toolkit to address it. Thank you. President Pumariega, how do you deal with a setback or a disappointment?
I think reflection. I think the first part is staying away from like the negative self-talk. Like the commissioner, I'm an optimist, so I feel like there isn't a problem that comes my way that somehow I can't fix. Except sometimes people. But so I go back to, okay, what could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? How could I have been more intentional about it? And kind of resetting. I think that's really easy in my professional life. I think that when you have setbacks in your personal life, those rock you a lot more. And I think that then, that's where, could I come in for another landing? Can I retry to come in and kind of reset where I might have come from and didn't yield the kind of response or outcome? So I do think that it's not one size fits all. It's, first of all, your mindset and having a growth mindset and saying, okay, it's not that I own this, but I own this. And how can I take how I would have handled that differently? Because I can't, grow for anyone, but I can grow for myself. So it's the way that I react or respond. It's the way that I see, okay, what's our way out and through, and then let it go. Then let it go. So you can be prepared and build resilience for the next one, because the next one's around the corner. And if you're carrying the baggage from the other three, you're going to get overwhelmed and not see as clear as you can if you let that other one go.
Thank you. One last question. Go a little fun and different with this one, and then we'll open it up to questions from our guests here today. And so this question is, what is something about you that can't be found on a Google search that you're willing to share? Are you willing to share? Just a fun fact about each of you.
When I left college, I was a lifeguard, so that was my first actual job. I don't think you can find it on a Google search, but you might be able to.
You never know.
Yeah, so maybe Miami, I was always destined to come here at some point. So, yeah, that was it.
Lifeguard, awesome. Lifeguard Brent, thank you. Yes.
It's interesting. You might be able to find this on a Google search, but maybe not. I am by training a philosopher. I have a degree in philosophy from the University of Florida, which is going to juxtapose, what I said earlier about being precise, because I'm actually trained to think in entire shades of gray. But most people don't know that I am a philosopher by training. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Let's see. I was a lifeguard when I was in high school.
Oh, really?
So maybe something about saving people. So you couldn't find that in a Google search, I don't think. You probably couldn't find in a Google search, I love McDonald's, and now work across the street at McDonald's with an app that tells me I should go get a double cheeseburger.
Oh, my God.
So I've turned off, the app and the settings to try to make sure my jackets still button and are not missiles. So I'd leave it there. But I just got asked by a group of girls, and I was like, that I cursed, that I dropped the F-bomb. And they were like laughing hysterically. So they got a good chuckle out of it, in junior high and high school.
You're not alone with the cursing, I have to confess.
Just feels so good, right? And then you're like, that was a good release.
If this were the Actors Studio, I'd ask you each what your favorite cuss word is, but I guess I won't. Well, that'll be for the after party outside. So now I would like to open it up to questions. Does anyone in the audience have a question for our panel?
Thank all of you for being here. There are a lot of women who learn many cents less to the dollar. What are some things that you can see to definitely close that gap? Because I think everyone knows when you empower women economically, their children benefit.
So in our country, women make 82 cents to the dollar on a general scale. And that bothers me to my core. I always tell everyone I'm passionate about parity, and that means equality for women, not only in politics, but in the private sector as well. And just to kind of give a couple more stats, in 1989, for example, our 100th United States Congress was only comprised of 5% women, 2 senators, 20 or so House of Representative members. In this 117th Congress in 2022, we have 24 senators and 121 congresswomen. That's 27% representation by women. Why am I telling you this? Not only to show the progress and to say that it's exciting, but also to highlight that there's so much more work to do because women make up 51% of the population. And so how do we close that gap, right? How do we get to parity for women where women are making exactly the same as men? We have more women in leadership. We have more women at the helm. We have more women in boardrooms and at CEOs and in positions of politics and leadership who are making the decisions about who gets paid what. And so, listen, in the last 33 years, we've gone from 5% to 27% representation. I believe in our lifetimes we will see 51% representation parity, and I believe at that time we will see equality in pay.
Along those lines, I think it's your circle of influence, right? As women, when you have a decision to make on somebody's salary, how do you make it? Right? How do you make it? And, like you said, we're in rooms where we're deciding salary. And what I have been really intentional about is paying the right, so it doesn't matter if the person that was there that's leaving was making this. Why is the person who's coming in expected to earn 20% less? If they're expected to do the job at the same, it doesn't matter that the other person was there 10 years. They're expected to not do the job 10 years back, right? I think those are decisions. When we do that as women, when we say that every woman is worth every penny we pay them, and we're not petty, we'll get there. Because there are places where it is women CEOs not paying women. And that's a travesty, right? We can easily say it's men. No. There are women CEOs saying, well, I didn't make that when I was her age, so she'll make this. No. So I think that as women, we have to stand up for women and stand up in the boardroom and stand up when we're making decisions that close that gap.
And I would just add on the importance of transparency as well, and it's something that we've been doing in the government civil service. It's publishing what those pay scales are, so that it was, and when they first came out, it was really obvious there was this huge gender pay gap. And when it's obviously published like that, it has to close. So if we can all be more transparent, then there's hope for the future.
Hello, yes. As a student here at MDC Wolfson, I'm eternally grateful that you guys are breaking boundaries and paving the way for me and other girls like me to become successful young women. And I'd like to know when you knew you'd become a leader.
I still don't feel like I have sometimes, to be honest. I don't think, I think it's when other people are then recognising you as a leader, and then it's like that comes back to that belief. But I don't think I truly felt it in myself. I would go off and do these different courses, and they were called things like Leading with Purpose. But yeah, I don't think I feel that way. I need to be told sometimes.
It's a good question, really good question. I think there's different moments that you feel that way. I can remember being the captain on the basketball team. And we were, imagine a group of women in conflict. The coach was like, go fix this. And I don't know, I brought everybody to the middle of the court, and I looked up, and like even the best player was listening. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think it's about, I don't necessarily think I do my best leadership when it's positional. It's really when I've influenced, right? Power comes from two places. Positional power, and we all have a positional power in the titles we hold. That isn't as important to me as when I influence the outcome of something, because I'm using my power as a woman to influence for the good. And that happens at different stages in your life. It happens with you today. So I think it's recognizing that you just influence the outcome of something by your presence. And that's leadership.
I think that's a fantastic question, and thank you for asking, and thank you for being here. I think leadership is not defined by title, right? You being here is leadership, right? You standing up for anyone that you see being bullied is leadership, right? You using your voice to advocate on a cause that you believe strongly in is leadership. It doesn't rest or lie in a title of president or commissioner or consul general. It is a characteristic. And if you find yourself standing up for things that you find to be important, you are a leader, and that characteristic will only grow in you and will create opportunities for you as you get older to find yourselves in titled positions of leadership. So trust the process. I have no doubt by the question that you asked that you will one day be a leader by title, but as you sit here today, I'm sure you are exactly that. So thank you for asking the question.
An anthropology major wants to go to Hawaii to finish her degree, so we're just going to do great things.
Well, I think we're going to close up now so that we can go outside. We hope that you will join us outside for our unveiling of our exhibit. It's been a pleasure to have you here. I hope you enjoyed our panelists, and please join me in thanking them for this great conversation.
Oh, I thought it was a wonderful event where we had staff and faculty and students and our community members with us. And I really appreciated what our remarkable panel had to share about women's advancement and what's important to remember in your personal life and in your professional life in order to empower others as well.
I'll finish on what I said in there about believe. So believe in yourself, believe in your friends, and help and support them.